Joining us now, Sheriff David Clarke. Sheriff Clarke, well, midterms are over. What do you think?
Well, first of all, hello, and hello to your listeners. Look, yeah, it's on to 2020. I said that the day after the election. You know, the Democrats, they look at elections as a 24/7, 365 activity, and unfortunately, sometimes for our side, the conservative side, the GOP side, we see elections from about 6 months out from election day, and that's problematic because we always end up, I think, coming from behind. So we have to have a new attitude, a new approach to this sort of thing, and see this battle, and that's what it is. This is, you know, political warfare. We have to see it as a, like I said, a 24/7, 365. So the money has to be raised, the candidates have to be found. But right now, job one is getting President Trump reelected, maintaining the Senate. Those judicial appointments that are coming up are going to be important, and somehow the RNC, the GOP, is going to have to figure out a way, come up with a strategy to retake the House of Representatives.
Let me just ask you something. Do you feel better, Sheriff Clarke, about the president's prospects in 2020 today than you did on the day before the election, the midterms?
Well, I would say, you know, I always have a sense of urgency about these things. I'm always nervous. Being a former elected official myself, I always had a rumbling in my stomach moving in toward, you know, the next election. So I think that nervousness is important. I think that instills a sense of urgency. We can't think because of what's gone on in the past, and I'm hearing this talk about, you know, if the Democrats reclaim the House, it makes the president's prospects even better for 2020. We're taking things for granted. I wouldn't fall into that trap. So I feel good about it, but we got a lot of work ahead, a lot of work to do. And if we don't start today, you know, we start talking about this. I don't mean talking about it, we will, but if we don't start the activity, the actual activities well before that November in 2020, you know, it's just not a good approach to have.
So, Sheriff Clarke, if I hear what you're saying is, and I agree with you, I mean, the Democrats look at elections as a never-ending 365 cycle. They just keep doing it in every state they're in where they get organized. I mean, they're out working the day after that election's over on the next one coming up. But you're right, Republicans don't do that. They just kind of go about and do what they do and kind of forget about it. They don't have the staffs that the Democrats have in their various organizations. And then they kind of wait until the next cycle gears up again, and they're always behind. They're always behind an organization, behind in, you know, get out the vote, behind in early balloting. I mean, the RNC was telling me every day, Sheriff Clarke, about how great their early voting operation was, and all these early voting ballots that were better than ever in the Republican strongholds, and they had turned the corner on it. And then we get to every single race that was close, and whether it was Montana or Arizona or whatever, Nevada, all the early voting that came in at the end put the Democrats over the top. So I just don't believe what the RNC was telling me for weeks because it didn't pan out, right?
Right. They don't really have a plan. There was a lot of happy talk going on at the time. Too much of a reliance on data analysis. Data analysis is supposed to be a force multiplier. It's supposed to help you with your ground game. It's supposed to help you with help the people who are the boots on the ground. But that's not how the RNC, in my view anyway, approaches this thing. They see this as a simply a tech approach to winning an election, where the dirty work, the grunt work, it has to be done by the foot soldiers on the ground, the door-to-door stuff, for instance, the stuffing envelopes, the making phone calls, the phone banks, that sort of thing. And like I said, I've gone through this being a former elected official myself. So I believe they have to do some soul searching at the RNC, and they have to start being honest with people, because people are going to get frustrated, as happened in the past before President Trump came along, and reinstill this confidence in them that things could be different with the RNC, because they're going to get people frustrated and people are going to drop out of the process. Now, I travel this country over the last year and a half on behalf of America First, and other invitations to GOP groups, Lincoln, Reagan Day dinners. And, you know, I was hearing from people on the ground and, you know, at ground level, and they're frustrated. You know, I told people at the same time, I said, if you think If we produce the same kind of numbers that got Donald Trump elected, if you think we do that in the midterms, we'll be all right, you're wrong. And I'm going to tell people again, if you think the same number of people that came out for Donald Trump in 2016, if that same number comes out in 2020, he's going to be in trouble. And again, I'm trying to instill a sense of urgency about this. We can't match the Democrats in a numbers game. There are more registered Democrats across the United States than there are Republicans. So if we try to match them in a numbers game, we're going to lose. I think that's what happened here in the midterms. We tried to go head-to-head numbers-wise. Where's the RNC's strategy? I haven't seen it for voter registration. That's another thing that the Democrats approach is a 24/7, 365. Voter registration, constantly, continually registering people so they know where they can find them on Election Day, and then they go out on Election Day and find them and they get them to the polls. We don't have that sort of ground game. I don't see an ongoing effort by the RNC, the GOP, to do voter registration. This is the grunt work. This is the dirty work that has to be done if you're going to win elections. So that's why I say I think the RNC needs to do some soul searching. I don't want to appear as being overly critical, but gosh darn it, I'm tired of coming in second place. I'm tired of settling for the crumbs. I want some of the pie this time. Some of the pie is more election victories, and that's what we're going to have to do if we're going to be successful in 2020.
Sheriff Clarke, I agree and concur and applaud everything you just said. And, you know, as I was getting these reports from the RNC, and they worked very hard with their supporters in the media in this cycle, and I made a comment one day, and I don't remember where it was, but it was like, you know, I kind of heard the same thing in 2012 with the Romney campaign and these victory centers and all of these people they were touching and calling and dropping and lit dropping and in the millions and millions, and they set records. And it was, like you said, it was happy talk because they never got him to the polls. It was all nonsense. It was just feel good inside, but outside it had really little impact. And I kind of got the feeling it was the same thing, but I'm like, yeah, no, maybe it's just, you know, deja vu all over again. But I think you nailed it. I mean, there's got to be a better effort with voter registration, and there's just a lot of happy talk that goes on. And I think the RNC under Romney has made some strides. They raised a lot of money. I applaud them for that. And they've got some good things in place. But we kind of got sold the bill of goods because they were telling me, hey, this time when the early ballots come in, it's going to be a different story. No, it was actually worse. So, I mean, they just have to figure this out. But I also agree with you that Trump is going to have to grow the pie because if the same number of voters comes out exact same, he loses. He's going to have to grow the pie. I think he can do that, but it is going to be a little bit of a different approach. Sheriff, I'm out of time for this segment. What is your website, sir?
AmericasSheriff.com. That's AmericasSheriff.com. Appreciate it. And my book, Cop Under Fire. Get it.
AmericasSheriff.com. And buy his book and do it now. Sheriff, thanks for being with us, man. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.